As I imagine all of you have figured out by now, DC Comics' Dawn of DC initiative is almost over. We're heading to the end state with Absolute Power, the big event that's coming up, and it's time to look back at Dawn of DC at what I consider to be a 100% failure on the part of DC Comics. I don't think they even knew what they wanted Dawn of DC to be. They did have some words explaining what they thought would happen during it. I don't think that's really occurred whatsoever, although there is an article from the Popverse that I'll be using just to kind of remind you of what Dawn of DC is and some of their opinions on it. For the most part, I disagree with a lot of what they have to say, but it's good to look back and see what DC Comics can learn from another absolute failure on their part. This summer, the Dawn of DC comes to an end. DC Comics confirmed the line-wide branding, which debuted in January 2023, was used to promote launches of DC's primary DC Universe titles throughout the subsequent months, will be dropped with the launch of the Absolute Power event in July. The Dawn of DC branding was announced in November 2022 as a publishing initiative spinning out of Dark Crisis on Infinite Earth series, intended to, as DC put it at the time, shine the spotlight on a number of fan-favorite superheroes and supervillains that haven't been front and center for some time. And we still haven't seen Aquaman. There's no Aquaman series. We still haven't seen Justice League. They haven't re-debuted, although I 100% believe that will happen in Absolute Power. Who are the heroes that we hadn't seen that had a spotlight shined on them? Probably, I guess the only one really is Green Arrow, and that one seems to be trending downward as far as popularity goes, but other than that, maybe Hawkgirl, which was a complete embarrassment. Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville, another complete embarrassment. Just a lot of failure across the board. The only stuff that's really worked, at least in my mind, is really the Superman series. It wasn't like we hadn't seen the Man of Steel in quite some time. I would say Green Lantern has been great, but it's not like we haven't seen Green Lantern before. You know, we had the Grant Morrison series, followed by the Jeff Thorne series, went right into the Jeremy Adams stuff and Philip Kennedy Johnson. We've certainly seen Hal Jordan and John Stewart spotlighted quite a bit, and those are some of the highlights. But what they did with the Flash under Cy Springer has been an embarrassment and a whole lot of failure across the board. The current state of Batman, which isn't really what they're talking about here, but Batman is just awful. I don't even know what Chip Zdarsky is doing anymore. Coming out of Joker Year One, one of the worst stories I've ever read in my life. Probably just a smidge better than Gotham War. And really, that's what Dawn of DC has been really about. It hasn't really been about spotlighting heroes and villains. It's been about events. You know, we came out of Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. We went into Lazarus Planet, which was a joke in my opinion. Then we went into Night Terrors, where they shut the entire line down. Despite a couple of titles building up some momentum, that wasn't a very smart idea. We went right into Gotham War, which is absolutely terrible. We went into Beast World, which is surprisingly kind of good. Not the tie-ins, but the main series was actually pretty fun. That didn't work. Absolute sales failure. We talked about that one. We've still got a Superman Brainiac Queen event from Josh Williamson that we haven't got to. And then we'll be finishing up with Absolute Power. And that's really what Dawn of DC has been about. But that's one thing that everyone has been asking DC Comics to do less of, is event comic books. And they won't stop doing events. And that's really what Dawn of DC is about. And whatever the next initiative is will be kicked off by another event, followed by 5 more events before they realize that didn't help sales either, and that failed as well. And that's basically, they are in this endless cycle of failure, basically all revolving around events and very bad comic book creators. The Dawn of DC branding was also attached to relaunches of some of DC's A-list series, including Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Green Lantern, Birds of Prey, and Titans, with the latter standing in as DC's premier super team in the absence of the Justice League, which has been missing from DC's publishing schedule since April of 2022. Additionally, it was used for some all-new creations, including the We Are Legends miniseries spotlighting new Asian heroes throughout the DCU. And we talk about a whole lot of failure there. I can't even begin to talk about Tom King's Wonder Woman, which certainly the sales have increased just a little bit, but it's not exactly a perennial bestseller. And it is a chore to read, to say the least. I heard, for some reason, everyone was talking about Kelly Thompson's Birds of Prey. I read the first issue, and I was like, this isn't very good, but it was in everyone's like top 10 comic books of 2023, so I jumped back in, and I still don't know what they're talking about. That book has been atrocious. I guess the biggest failure out of all the stuff they're talking about there really is the Titans, who are supposed to replace the Justice League as the team, the go-to team in all of DC Comics. And they haven't really done that. Tom Taylor never really established it. He wanted to go and make a statement about prison reform, so that was the first few issues. And then he wanted to make a statement about global warming and planting trees in South America and stuff like that, which I guess, depending on your point of view, are all noble endeavors or whatever. not exactly Justice League caliber of problems that the Titans were tackling there. And then we get into Beast World. But at that point, people just wanted the Justice League. And really, they've been trying to explain using characters like Batman and Superman of why the Justice League decided to disband. They've never actually given a real reason why the Titans needed to take over. And technically, if you go read Beast World, the Titans are the reason that the entire world was basically taken over by animals, because Beast Boy was so stupid, he turned himself into the Necro Star and was then taken over by Dr. Hate and all that kind of stuff, and ended up destroying his girlfriend's life, I guess. She's stuck in a little gemstone right now. So they didn't even really make the Titans look all that compelling as heroes. They kind of made them look really stupid and kind of almost destroyed the world. But, you know, Titans Beast World being fun is the aberration. Nobody expected that, and I imagine that's why the sales on it were just absolutely so porous across the board. And if they just would have called it Justice League Beast World, it probably would have done better, because people would have expected it to be led by Superman and Batman rather than Raven, Beast Boy, and Nightwing. And I love Nightwing, but not exactly a hot character in my book right now, not a great series. Of course, that had been going on well before Dawn of DC. You know, and then talking about the We Are Legends miniseries, we're never going to see those characters again. Every single one of those was a failure. Go read Spirit World, and you can see how DC Comics tackles dead naming as if that's something superheroes really need to concern themselves with. Absolutely waste of time on all of those things. They went out and created stuff. They paid people to create new characters that nobody cared about, nobody bought into. And why would people go out there and buy into Spirit World and The Vigil and City Boy and all that kind of stuff when they can't even get Batman right, when they can't even produce a Justice League book? We haven't seen Aquaman for like 2 years now in a solo title, yet I'm supposed to go and buy into these characters that nobody's ever even heard of. You know, if DC Comics can't get their mainline stuff, their bread and butter right, why would anybody trust them to do anything correct at this point? And I think that's another one of the big failings of Dawn of DC, is it never really made people believe that DC were turning the corner. It felt like they were turning a corner with Superman, certainly, which is doing much better, and certainly with Green Lantern, but it's only characters here and there. But then when you go and see Batman, Detective Comics is basically unreadable under Ram V. Go check out The Flash. Go read that trash. And they're not even getting their like A-list characters right. And then Wonder Woman, like I said, is just an absolute chore. It's tough to buy into these new concepts when DC can't even get their like core concepts right. And I think that was an enormous failure on their part. The success of Dawn of DC as a brand can be seen not only in the increased profile for many of the publisher's core superhero properties, but also in the fact that it stuck around far past its original cutoff date. Looking back at that November 2022 announcement of the brand, it was described as a year-long storytelling initiative. Instead, Dawn of DC will have run 18 months by the time it's retired this summer. Now, those obviously are the words of the Popverse, I think Graham McMillan, not myself, because I don't think this has been a success, and I don't think it lasted 18 months because it was just so amazing for sales that they had to keep it going. People were just really buying into Dawn of DC. You know, they put out these graphs, and it would have like little time charts with logos on characters that were coming back. And every 2 months they would release a new graph, and the characters that were stacked up on each other would be moved to the right, moved to the right. I think it lasted 18 months because they couldn't get their shit together. They actually couldn't tell the stories that they were supposed to in time. And they just had to kind of like bleed it out and bleed it out and bleed it out. Like we were supposed to get that Superman Brainiac Queen event by the end of 2023. I don't think they prolonged it because it was this ginormous sales success. We know that it wasn't. We've heard for comic book retailers. We actually have definitive numbers saying DC comic sales are down, and kind of down dramatically over 2023 at a lot of comic book retailers. It was pushed out because they weren't ready. They couldn't actually get the stories out on time. And finally, they're getting back to the return of the Justice League, which we were promised. And obviously this Trinity of Evil stuff, which is all going to play into, you know, Absolute Power, which I've already talked about here on the channel. The final words from the glass is half full perspective of Graham McMillan, which I do find pretty funny in this case because it's been so bad and just the sales have been terrible. Go look at Beast World sales in the rankings. Cannot believe a DC event could do that poorly. Finally, he states, for now, though, let's take a moment to remember Dawn of DC for what it was, a return to fun DC comics that let the world have a really great Doom Patrol comic again, even if only for 7 issues. I miss you, Unstoppable Doom Patrol. And really, that's the damning piece of evidence to what Graham McMillan is even trying to get across here from the Popverse. You like Doom Patrol. Me, personally, I thought it was kind of boring, but I do like the Doom Patrol a series, but they put Dennis Culver on it. What are you supposed to do? He's not exactly a name, and it didn't make it past 7 issues. It was not a miniseries. It was an ongoing series that barely even cracked past 6 months. And you're calling this an enormous success. You had 3 new Asian superheroes created with Spirit World, The Vigil, and City Boy. None of them around. No one's talking about any of these characters. No one's really talking about anything at DC Comics these days other than how bad Joker Year 1 is and what an enormous disappointment it is and why they probably don't want to keep supporting Batman under Chip Zdarsky. And like I said, there's some cool stuff out there. Green Lantern's pretty damn cool. Green Arrow was cool, but it's trending off. Even Superman, which I thought was really, really good, is trending down as well. This last issue, I can't get behind Graff and Farm. They're just such stupid characters. And guess what? They powered down Superman there, and he's got a super armor suit from Lex Luthor. That's not compelling stuff. That's not what people want to see out of Superman. And, they did remove Philip Kennedy Johnson off the Action Comics book to throw Jason Aaron on there for a 3-part Bizarro story, which the first chapter was pretty okay, but the second chapter absolutely sucked. It showed you why you shouldn't have done a 3-part Bizarro series. So even the stuff that they were kind of getting right there for a moment really isn't working. And we still don't have Justice League. We still have Aquaman. And there's just so much failure and missed opportunities in Dawn of DC to really up the profile because Marvel Comics, quite frankly, right now, suck even worse when it comes to the quality than DC. But DC aren't generating buzz because their A-list titles really aren't generating buzz. There's no buzz around Batman other than disappointment. There's a little buzz around Superman, but people are also disappointed Philip Kennedy Johnson left. The only people buzzing about Wonder Woman are Tom King fans. Wonder Woman fans are beside themselves with the quality there. And there is no Justice League, so I don't know. We hardly even knew you, Dawn of DC. You came here, you didn't really do anything. I don't think there was a message there. If you personally liked Dawn of DC and you thought this was amazing, I would definitely like to hear from you guys. What did you think was so amazing about Dawn of DC? Because I don't really see anything out there other than a string of really bad event series with one pretty darn good one that nobody even paid attention to. I couldn't even do a video here on the channel that people wanted to watch based on Beast World because no one actually cared that it was even going on at the time. If you want more coverage of comic books that this YouTube channel can't handle, I do happen to have a whole lot of podcasts out there on my Patreon featuring some of your favorite guests like Doc, Aaron Sparrow, Jim from Weird Science, 32 Flavors, Nick Weiser, yours truly if you're a fan of mine as well. Every single week we give you 8 hours of new stuff all about comic books. If you haven't checked that out, it is for the super duper fan. There's a link in the video description.